Welcome to Beyond Neutral. I'm your host, Paula Reed. I think of the journey of life as a road that we're driving down. We get to speed up on the straightaways, ease back on the curves, and I don't know about you, but I've certainly had the obstacle in the roadway that I never expected to see, and I had to either slam my brakes on or swerve to avoid hitting it. But whether we're talking about our careers or relationships or even just managing through life's phases, life is all about shifting and moving from one place to another. The challenge is that sometimes, in trying to get from where we were to where we want to be, we can get stuck while we're trying to shift. And we land in what I call the neutral space, where we're applying old ways of thinking to new situations. Join me and some incredibly inspiring guests as we talk about what it takes to shift into gear and get to where you want to be. Because here's the deal, if you're sitting in neutral, you're going nowhere. Welcome to today's episode of Beyond Neutral. Today is the last episode in my inaugural series for this podcast. And so first of all, I want to thank everybody who was incredibly supportive in this project. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being here today. So when I first launched this podcast, the intention I had and the reason that I wanted to do it is throughout my life, my career, and my life in general, for that matter, I have talked to so many people and listened to so many stories and supported many people as they've tried to navigate challenges or changes in their life, right? So in executive search, it's a very emotional process, people changing jobs. And in that process, you learn so much about the stories that people tell themselves. And now in coaching, you really dig into the stories that people tell themselves and how those stories impact the way they think of themselves, the things they think they have permission to do or not do. And you realize how much of the stories we tell ourselves are the things that get us stuck and unable to move forward. And so the reason that I wanted to launch this was to be able to bring those stories forward, because I think the more that we can see the similarity that we all struggle with, the less power it has over us, and the more insight that we can gain in how to kind of get over those things and move forward. And so first of all, and I think one of the most important points I want to make about that is that it doesn't matter whether you're a CEO of a company or a president of an organization, or whether you're at the early part of your career, or whether you're a stay-at-home mom or an entrepreneur. We all tell ourselves stories, and those stories can be the things that can move us forward, but they can often be the things that keep us from moving forward. And the similarity is amazing, regardless of the level you are or where you are in your life. And it's really easy to fall back on them, especially when we go through challenging times. It's easy to kind of get stuck again in that same pattern that has kind of driven us or managed us throughout our lives. So that was the reason that I really wanted to launch this podcast, was to bring that forward and show examples of how other people applied ways of thinking to get them to where they wanted to go. So I've gotten some great feedback. And one of the big pieces of feedback that I've gotten from so many people is, I'd like you to just talk about life. You're talking to, people in their workplace and executives, but I just want to hear about life. And here's the story. All the things that we talked about are around life, even though work is the vehicle by which, these people may have applied their thinking. The challenge or the problem applies everywhere. So whether we're talking to Carrie Shigatomi, that episode where her bit of wisdom was, you're enough, realize that you're enough. And man, I've struggled with that so many times in my life, right? And it's not around my business necessarily. It's about other parts of me, other parts of, my personal life or relationships or whatever. That thought of what you are as you are as a person is enough. Leverage the things that you are, leverage the very gifts that you bring to any situation. So I thought that was tremendously insightful. Jeff Thompson, step out of your comfort zone. I mean, this podcast is an example of stepping out of my comfort zone, right? Where I had to really put myself out there in something that I was completely not comfortable with. And how many times does that apply in your life? Not just in your work, but wanting to, make new connections with friends, wanting to try something that you haven't done before and always wanted to, but are afraid you're not going to be good enough at it. All of that, it's all about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And the thing about that is it's the process of doing that that builds your confidence. It's not the result of doing that. It's going through that process, right? Whether it's Elizabeth Cowper, who was phenomenal, talking about how difficult it is to go through a pregnancy in the workplace and how challenging that is, and how organizations need to understand that being an inclusive organization means supporting that. I know so many women and men who have either adjusted to parenthood or who are going through the process of whether it's infertility or whether it's pregnancy or whatever it is, and how isolating that can feel, and how often there are these competing emotions in that moment. And that, applies in the workplace, and that applies in our personal lives as well. It's all the same thing. So certainly have experienced that and appreciated Elizabeth's perspective and what she's doing to try and change that dynamic and that dialogue around that. Very important conversation. Mike Shirey, unbelievable, made this transition from, a for-profit business for a not-for-profit business. And how, in order to do that, it required really a shifting of how he defined success in many ways, right? And he talked about going from the BMW to the Subaru. And there's nothing wrong with defining success as a BMW. That's perfectly fine if that's what your definition of success is. But sometimes the very thing that we hold on to is the thing that as a marker for what our happiness is, isn't necessarily marking what actually makes us happy or actually gives us gratification in our lives. And so being able to shift that, whether that's in our work, whether that's in our, what we expect our kids to be, whatever it is, right? Shifting that is the thing that unlocks the opportunity to be something different or do something different and have satisfaction from it. And so, really important lesson across a multitude of aspects of our lives. Brittany Dow's, the concept of trusting the process. My God, if we could all just dive in and just allow things to be and experience the lessons and the journey for what it's supposed to be rather than fighting it. Just get out of it what you need to get out of it and have faith that the things you're doing are going to lead you to what the answer is for you. Really key. And that's key in, my God, trusting the process. When I think about going through a divorce, talk about trusting the process, right? And the need to just be where you are in it and accept that you just have to make it through this moment, right? Powerful, powerful advice and insight. And then Steve Gallo around Don't Settle. What a great guy, right? What a wonderful human being. And the concept of not kind of allowing these rules almost that we grew up with. And I certainly did, not intentional, but they were about like what your station is in life or what you should think about achieving or how you should imagine yourself. And his point about don't settle, find really smart people, put yourself in situations where you can really learn from the best you can learn from. And don't think that you don't have a right to be there. You do have a right to be there. And then prove that you have a right to be there by taking that insight and applying it to how it's best going to serve you. Okay. Phenomenal lessons. So these aren't just career lessons, right? These are life lessons, because how we manage our careers, how we manage our work life is not separate from how we live our lives. It's a part of it. Work is a means to an end, And sometimes we get so overwhelmed with what the work is that we forget that it's supposed to fit into our lives in a way that brings us, total enrichment across everything. And so that was really the point of wanting to do this podcast and wanting to bring those conversations forward. So now it's summer, and in summer, I like to step back and like to basically re-energize myself, renew myself, take time to, have a little bit less on my plate. Obviously, we all have to kind of keep up with everything that we've got to keep up with, but it's such a phenomenal time to sit back a little bit and reflect for me, which is what my goal is for the summer. So I have set an intention to really enjoy my summer and take some of these lessons that I learned, as well as the lesson that I learned from just launching this, which was all of those things that my guests so eloquently pointed out, which is to step out of my comfort zone, which is to trust the process, which is, that I am enough, and to kind of to step into that and realize being enough doesn't mean that you're perfect or that you're everything. It means that you got a lot of great things to work with, and accept them and just continue to learn and improve and grow. And that's what you need to do. Improve on who you already are. That's so incredibly great. So I am taking a break from the podcast, sitting back, hopefully reading a few fiction books, because I spend a lot of time reading nonfiction. And so I want to relax and use my brain in a different way. And then hoping to come back in the fall with some new topics and some new guests and some new ideas. And so thank you all so much for being such an important part of this journey. I have appreciated your feedback and your insight. I am grateful. And what I have learned through this process is enormous, because I was stuck and I was stuck and knew that I needed to, in order to get unstuck, I just needed to put myself out there, quote unquote, love that phrase, put myself out there in a new way. And what that meant was taking all that I had, all my insecurities and my confidences and my vulnerabilities and my strengths, and put them all into this package and go forward and share them with people. And that's what I needed to do, get unstuck and move myself forward in some other ways. And so I am grateful for having had this platform to be able to do that. And so the summer is about kind of taking some of those lessons and starting to apply them in other ways, and then coming back with a new sense. So that's what I'm up to. That's where Beyond Neutral is. And so I'm grateful for everybody. Thank you for being here. I would love to hear your feedback. I would love to hear more about ideas that you would like me to delve into and uncover, guests that you might want me to have. Anything, any ideas are welcome. So please reach out, let me know your thoughts. And I look forward to seeing you at some point in the fall. And in the meantime, keep driving. And try to go off the road a little bit into maybe roads you haven't seen before and are uncharted and maybe aren't on your GPS. Put the GPS away and get lost. That's my summer mantra for you. So thank you so much. Have a great summer. Keep driving. Hey, thanks so much for joining us this week on Beyond Neutral. I'm your host, Paula Reed. Make sure to visit our website, www.readandco.com, for this week's show notes. And if you found value in today's episode, I would appreciate you giving us a rating on Apple Podcasts or share it with a friend. Also, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. All of this helps to support the show. Have a great week.